The Arizona sun was a cruel god, burning, constant, and unmerciful. It watched from high above as Clara Trumbull sat on the rotting porch of the Silver A Saloon. Her younger sister Susie curled beside her like a half-starved pup. Dust clung to their skirts. Flies buzzed around the dried blood on Clara's knuckles. Inside the saloon, their father was laughing again, that hollow, wheezing kind of laugh that always came before something bad. "You think he'll win this time?" Susie asked, voice soft. Clara didn't answer right away. She squinted at the sun slipping down past the ridge. The shadows it cast looked like claws reaching across the desert. "No," she said finally, "but he'll bet like he will." Susie nodded. She was only 14, but had learned not to hope. Her dress was torn at the hem, and her shoes had holes big enough to let sand in. She cradled her sketchbook against her chest like it could ward off reality. Clara was 19, but she felt older. Hard years age a girl fast out here, and watching her father lose everything one car at a time added decades. She stood up, brushing dirt off her hands, and stared through the saloon window. Inside, Ed Trumbull grinned like a jackal, sweat glistening on his brow. He was down his last few chips, and the pistol he swore he'd never part with. He had the Trumbull look. Square jaw, pale eyes, and a madness behind him that only liquor could feed. Clara felt a familiar tightness in her chest, the kind that said something was about to go wrong. Again. "He's talking to Mason," she muttered. Susie looked up. "The saloon man?" "Yeah." They both knew what that meant. Mason didn't play cards unless he was hungry for more than chips. Clara walked inside. It was dim, thick with smoke and tension. The men around the table barely glanced up as Clara approached. Mason's eyes flicked to her, lingering too long, then returned to Ed. "I'm raising 5, Mason said smoothly, sliding chips into the center. "What you got left, Ed?" Ed's fingers twitched. I got what you're looking for." Clara's boots hit the floor louder than she intended. "Don't," she said. The table froze. Ed's eyes darted to her, desperate. "Girl, it ain't like that." "It's exactly like that," Clara snapped. "You can't bet us." Mason leaned back in his chair, amused. "Ain't no law against putting up what's yours." "I'm not his," Clara said. "Technically," Ed muttered. "You're my kin. You and your sister. You eat my food." "We ain't eaten in 2 days," she growled. The room went quiet except for the rattle of a bottle being set down behind the bar. Ed swallowed hard. His hand trembled over the table. Mason laughed low. "Well, Ed, this is the most exciting hand I've seen in a month. You betting the girls or folding?" Clara's fist clenched, but she saw the truth in her father's eyes. He'd already made the decision. He tossed the pistol in. All in. A single beat of silence passed before Mason called it with nothing but confidence. Cards turned. Ed had nothing. Mason leaned forward, smiling like he'd just inherited gold. "I believe I win." Clara grabbed Ed by the collar and slammed him into the wall outside before anyone could move. "You bastard," she hissed. "You sold us." "I was going to win." "You were never going to win." His breath reeked of whiskey and failure. He shoved her back and staggered down the street, muttering about second chances and curse luck. She didn't follow. When she turned around, Mason stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "I'm not going with you," Clara said. He smirked. "Didn't say you had a choice." Clara reached behind her. Her knife was still there, hidden under the folds of her skirt. "Try and take me." He stared at her for a long moment, then whistled and stepped back inside. She didn't wait to see what came next. "Come on, Susie. We're leaving." They ran. Through the alleyways, past broken fences and dry wells, out into the scrubland beyond town. Susie said nothing, her little legs struggling to keep pace. They didn't stop until the town lights were just a glimmer behind them, and the desert silence wrapped around them like a shroud. The moon rose red over the saguaro, casting monstrous shadows. A coyote howled in the distance. Clara dropped to her knees by a dry creek. "We'll rest here," she said. Susie collapsed beside her, breathing hard. "What do we do now?" "Survive." "But where will we go?" Clara looked around the barren wasteland. The only answer was the wind. She lit fire with her flint and dry mesquite branches, her hands shaking. She was angry, so goddamn angry, at her father, at the world, at herself for not stopping him sooner. Susie curled beside the fire, sketchbook forgotten, cheeks streaked with tears. "Clara," she whispered, "I'm scared." Clara tucked her sister's coat around her and brushed hair from her face. "I know. Me too." She didn't sleep. The cold sank deep into her bones. Owls called from the cliffs above. She sharpened her knife, eyes never leaving the shadows. By morning, they had half a canteen of warm water and nothing to eat. Susie's face was pale. Clara forced her to sip water, then took the knife and headed off. She returned with jackrabbit, small, but meat nonetheless. It tasted like ash and grit, but it filled their bellies enough to silence the worst of the hunger. "We can't stay here," Clara said. "If Mason sends men after us." "You think he will?" Susie asked, voice barely above a breath. Clara nodded. "He thinks he owns us now." "Then what do we do?" Clara looked east toward the rising sun. "We move. Keep going. Stay off the roads." They walked for hours. The land stretched wide and merciless, dotted with thorn bush and bones. Clara's boots cracked open. Susie stumbled, her feet blistered and bleeding. By the second night, Susie was burning with fever. Clara held her close, pressing damp cloth to her forehead, whispering lullabies her mother once sang. "Don't go to sleep," she pleaded. "Stay with me." But Susie's eyes fluttered, her lips cracked. Clara built another fire, this one bigger. She hoped anyone, might see the smoke. Or maybe she just didn't want to feel so alone. She didn't hear the horses at first, just the crunch of hooves and the silence that followed. She turned, knife in hand. Figures emerged from the shadows, 6 of them, maybe 7, mounted, silent. Their faces were painted red and black, their hair tied back, bows across their backs. Apache. Clara stood between them and Susie, blade trembling in her grip. One of them dismounted, a tall man with scars across his chest and a gaze sharp as obsidian. "You sick?" he said in broken English, gesturing to Susie. Clara didn't answer. Another stepped forward, an older woman, weathered but strong. She knelt beside Susie and touched her cheek. Clara's grip tightened. The old woman looked up. "Child, fever. Bad. Don't touch her." The woman didn't flinch. She rose slowly and met Clara's eyes. "You care for her?" "She's my sister." The old woman nodded once, then turned to the others. Words were exchanged in Apache, sharp and rhythmic. Finally, the man spoke again. "Come, you follow, or she die." Clara hesitated, the weight of every bad decision pressing down on her. She looked at Susie, shivering, lips blue, then back at the man. "If you hurt her," she warned, "I'll gut every one of you." He didn't smile. He didn't need to. He simply said, "Walk." And Clara did, with her sister in her arms, and nothing left behind but footprints and smoke. The trail twisted between blood-red cliffs and stone columns carved by wind and time, places that looked more imagined than real. Clara followed the Apache riders in silence, her boots scraping sandstone, her arms aching from carrying Susie's fevered body. The old woman who checked her sister earlier walked just ahead, steady as a ghost. Susie murmured something in her sleep. Nonsense word, maybe a dream, and Clara adjusted her grip. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, to know where they were being taken. But something about the riders' quiet focus kept her silent. They didn't look at her. They moved like wolves, efficient, unbothered, lethal if provoked. They crested a rise, and there it was, a narrow valley tucked between towering canyon walls, hidden from any road, any eye in the sky. Smoke curled from small fires. Tents and wooden huts ringed a central clearing where children chased each other barefoot and laughing. Dogs barked once and were silenced with a low whistle. The man who led the group raised a hand. The others halted. He turned to Clara. "Red Rock Hollow," he said. Clara nodded, wary. He pointed to the old woman. "Nayli, she healer." Naley took Susie gently from Clara's arms, cradling her like something sacred. Clara flinched but let go, watching as Naley carried her sister into a small tent marked by dried herbs and colored beads. A younger girl with braided hair ducked in after them, pulling the flap shut. Clara stood alone. The Apache riders dispersed like smoke. The tall one who had spoken, broad shoulders, high cheekbones, a jagged scar along his ribs, remained. "You name?" he asked. "Clara. I am Taza." He said it simply, like wind naming itself. She looked toward the tent. "Is she going to live?" He considered her. Naley, good, but no magic. Clara didn't realize she was shaking until her knees buckled. She hit the dirt, hands clutching the earth like it might offer something back. The scent of smoke and wild sage filled her nose. When she finally looked up, Taza had vanished. Night came quickly in the hollow, swallowing the last of the sun and replacing it with firelight. Clara sat near one of the smaller fires, chewing a piece of tough meat handed to her by a quiet-faced woman with streaks of gray in her braid. She ate like an animal, grateful, hungry, ashamed of her hunger. Children darted by, laughing in a language she couldn't understand. One stopped in front of her, offering a carved wooden lizard. Clara stared. The boy smiled, dropped it in her lap, and ran. Someone laughed, a light, musical sound. Clara turned to see a young woman sitting nearby, weaving something from reeds. "His name is Otto," the girl said. "He likes your hair." Clara looked down at her dust-caked braid. "He's got odd taste." The girl shrugged. He has seen few ghosts with red in their hair. Clara wasn't sure if she'd been insulted or welcomed. She tucked the lizard into her pocket. When the tent flap finally opened, Clara was at Susie's side in 3 strides. The girl inside, the helper, gestured for quiet. Naley looked up, her face unreadable. "Fever break. Not gone. She'll live?" Clara asked. "Maybe." That wasn't good enough. But Clara had learned not to argue with people who knew more than she did. Naley stood, bones creaking. "You strong." Clara stared. "What?" "You bring sister through fire. Not many do. I didn't have a choice." "Always choice," Naley said. "You chose right." She left Clara there, kneeling beside Susie, who stirred and opened one eye. "We make it," she rasped. "Yeah," Clara whispered. "We made it." Days passed. The fever left like a thief in the night, taking some of Susie's strength with it. Clara stayed close, cleaning her, helping her sit, feeding her broth. The clan brought food. They brought clean water. No one asked for payment. Clara didn't trust it. Taza returned on the 4th morning, dropping a bundle at her feet. "Bow," he said. Clara opened it. A simple wooden bow, unstrung, with a few crude arrows beside it. "I'm not one of you," she said, unsure. He pointed to the woods beyond the hollow. "You want food. You hunt." He left. She did. Not well at first. Missed every shot, cursed under her breath. Got scraped by a thorn bush. But she kept at it. The 5th day, she brought back a rabbit. On the 6th, a pheasant. Taza raised an eyebrow when she dropped it by the fire. "Beginner luck," Clara muttered. "You learn. Fast." "Had to," she said. "Out there, if you don't learn fast, you die slow." He nodded like he understood that too well. She didn't expect the quiet friendship that began between them. It wasn't made of words, mostly glances, gestures, silent encouragement. He showed her how to walk without sound, how to read tracks in dry earth, how to listen with her skin, not just her ears. One night, as the fire burned low and Susie sketched figures dancing in the flames, Clara found herself laughing. She didn't remember what sparked it. Some misstep with the bow, maybe a joke with the children had mimed, but the laugh escaped before she could stop it. Susie looked up in wonder. "I haven't heard you laugh since Mama." Clara froze. The word hit like a stray bullet. Susie reached for her hand. "She'd be proud, you know." Clara didn't answer. Instead, she watched the sky above the canyon, stars unclouded by dust or smoke, and thought of a woman with soft hands and a tired smile, singing lullabies as she braided their hair. The peace didn't last. On the 8th day, Just as Clara was learning to string her own arrows, a scout galloped into the hollow. His horse foamed at the mouth. His breath came in gasps. Clara dropped the bow before he even spoke. Taza walked him, exchanged a few words in low Apache, then turned to Clara. "White men, come." Her heart stopped. "How many?" "10. Horses. Guns. They follow your trail." "Mason. Of course he'd come." "We'll leave," Clara said quickly. "We'll run. You don't have to get involved." Taza looked at her like she was speaking nonsense. "This your fight," she insisted. "No," he said. "Now ours." She shook her head. "You don't understand. That man, he doesn't care who he hurts. If he thinks you helped us, he will regret." War paint appeared that night. Reds and blacks smeared across faces, arms, weapons. Drums beat slow and steady, like the hollow had grown its own heartbeat. Clara watched it all from the edge, her hand shaking. She didn't belong here. She never would. But Susie needed safety. These people had offered it freely. That meant something. Clara found Naley beside the fire, mixing herbs. "I want to help," Clara said. "You will." "I want to fight." "You will," Naley said again. Then, after a pause, she added, "You fight already? In here." She tapped Clara's chest. "Time to fight out here." Clara picked up her bow. As the stars wheeled overhead, she stood beside warriors who had no reason to trust her, ready to face men who believed they owned her. Susie called to her from the tent, voice small. "Clara?" "Yeah." "Don't let them take me." "They won't." "Promise?" Clara looked toward the canyon's edge where the riders would come. "I promise." And she meant it. They came at dawn, just as the first gold light licked the tops of the red canyon walls. 10 riders, just as the scout had warned, guns slung low, faces shaded beneath wide brims and filth. Mason led them, tall and lean, his mustache curled like a snake ready to strike. He rode a black gelding and held a shotgun across his lap like a promise. From a ridge above, Clara lay flat on her belly, bow in hand, breath shallow. Taza crouched beside her, eyes narrowed, his body still as stone. Below, the Apache warriors melted into the rocks like shadows, silent and invisible. The hollow was empty by design. Tents packed away, fires cold, women and children hidden deep in the canyon's bones. Only dust and stillness waited to greet the intruders. Clara's heart pounded so loud, she was sure Mason would hear it echoing off the cliffs. The riders reached the mouth of the hollow and slowed. One dismounted, kicking a pile of ashes where a fire had once been. "They were here," he called. "Recent." Mason didn't respond. He simply stared ahead, scanning the empty canyon. "They're watching," he said finally. "I can feel it." He turned slightly in his saddle and raised his voice. "Clara Trumbull, I know you're here. You and the girl. Ain't no use hiding. I bought you fair." Beside her, Taza's jaw tightened. Clara's fingers curled tighter around the bow. She wanted nothing more than to put an arrow between Mason's eyes. But Taza touched her wrist and gave a single shake of his head. "Wait." Below, the riders spread out, rifles raised. One shouted something, an expletive loss of wind. Then the first arrow flew. It struck the man nearest the fire pit in the neck. He dropped without a sound, gurgling into the dirt. Chaos erupted. Gunfire cracked across the canyon like thunder. The Apache rose from behind rocks, from the cliffs, from nowhere, their war cries piercing and wild. Arrows hissed through the air. Riders scattered, returning fire, but their aim was poor. The canyon twisted sound, confused distance. Every bullet seemed to go wide. Clara loosed her own arrow, striking a man in the thigh. He screamed and fell from his horse, crawling for cover. She moved, crawling to another outcrop, drawing another shaft. Below, Mason dismounted, shotgun raised, eyes sweeping the rocks. "Come out, you savages," he bellowed. "I'll burn this place to the ground." A young Apache warrior darted forward, tomahawk raised. A shot rang out. He stumbled and fell hard. Blood bloomed across his chest. Clara swallowed a cry. Taza moved then, Swift and sure, bow replaced with a long knife. He leapt from the rocks, driving the blade into the belly of a man swinging his revolver. One motion, one scream, and he was gone again. Clara kept firing. Her hands bled from the string, but she didn't stop. Every movement was for Susie. Every breath was survival. Another rider fell. Then another. Smoke curled from cracked pistols. Horses shrieked. One stampeded, riderless and panicked, crashing into a canyon wall. Mason was still standing. He fired twice more, then ducked behind a boulder. "You think you can steal from me?" he shouted. "You think you can run?" A figure stepped out from the shadows. Clara. She held her knife in one hand, bow discarded, breath ragged. "You didn't buy me," she said. Mason turned. "You? All this trouble over you? You ain't worth spit." Clara's lip curled. "Guess you overpaid." He raised a shotgun, but Taza was faster. A whistle split the air. An arrow slammed into Mason's shoulder, spinning him back. He roared and fired blindly. The shot hit stone inches from Clara's head. She rushed forward, tackled him to the ground. The shotgun skidded away. Mason swung, his fist catching her jaw, but she drove her knife into his thigh. He screamed, grabbing her wrist. They rolled in the dust, teeth bared, blood mixing in the sand. "You little," Mason hissed. Clara punched him hard across the mouth. "You don't own me." She raised the knife again, but it was Taza who ended it. He appeared beside them, silent, and drove a second blade clean through Mason's back. Mason twitched once, then stilled. Silence fell over the hollow. Bodies littered the canyon floor. 6 white men, 1 Apache warrior, 3 wounded. The sun climbed higher, painting everything in stark reds and golds. Smoke rose in soft tendrils from spent guns. Clara stood, swaying slightly. Her hands trembled. Taza offered her his arm. She took it. They walked among the dead. Clara found the young warrior who'd fallen first. He was no older than Susie. She knelt beside him and closed his eyes. "He was brave," she said softly. Taza nodded. He was ready. They'd buried their dead that evening. Stones were stacked in careful patterns. Songs were sung in low voices, carried by the canyon winds. The women returned, carrying bowls of water, strips of cloth, warm food. Naley found Clara by the fire, scrubbing blood from her hands. "You kill?" the old woman asked. Clara didn't answer at first. "Yes." "You feel bad?" "Yes." Naley nodded. "Good." Susie emerged from a healer's tent on shaky legs. She crossed the hollow slowly, hair tangled, eyes wide. Clara ran to her, pulling her into a tight embrace. "I heard the guns," Susie whispered. "I thought—" "We're safe," Clara said. "It's over." But it wasn't. Not really. That night, Clara sat alone beneath the stars, watching smoke rise in lazy spirals. Her knife lay across her lap. She wasn't shaking anymore. She stared at her hands, stronger now, calloused, blood-streaked. Taz approached quietly and sat beside her. "You fight well," he said. "I fought because I had to. Still, you fight well." She looked at him. "They'll send more, won't they?" "Maybe. Then we keep moving?" He paused. "Or stay, become part of stone. I'm not one of you." "Not yet," he said. She almost smiled. He stood and walked away, leaving her to the firelight and her thoughts. In the distance, coyotes howled. The desert was never silent for long. The canyon was quiet in the days after battle, but it wasn't peace. It was recovery, the kind that came slowly, with aching muscles, low voices, and the long shadow of what had been lost. Smoke no longer curled from battle fires, but from cooking pots, and the hollow began to breathe again. Clara moved through it like a different person. She trained at dawn, bow in hand, repeating the motions Taza had shown her. She helped gather herbs with Naley, learn which roots soothed fever and which cut like poison. She scraped hides, sharpened blades, stitched wounds. Not because she was asked, because she needed to, because doing nothing now felt like forgetting the dead. At night, she sat with Susie, who was regaining her strength in little bursts. The girl's sketchbook had returned to her hands, and with it came color. Carefully drawn flames, painted feathers, even the stern lines of Taza's face softened by charcoal strokes. She laughed more now. It was quieter than before, but it was real. "You're changing," Susie said one evening, watching Clara refletch arrows by firelight. Clara glanced up. "How do you mean?" "You're not scared anymore." Clara gave a half-smile. "I'm still scared. I just know what I'm willing to fight for now." They shared silence for a while. The fire popped. Coyotes howled, but they were distant, like background noise to a new kind of rhythm. That rhythm broke on the fifth morning when a lone rider appeared at the ridge. Dust clung to his coat. His hat was torn, boots worn down to flaps of leather. His horse looked half dead. Clara recognized him the moment he slumped from the saddle. Ed Trumbull. She reached for her knife without thinking. Susie gasped, standing behind her. "Is that—" "Yeah," Clara said, already moving. Taza met her halfway. "He yours?" He was. Ed stumbled forward, hands raised. "Clara, I didn't know where else to go." She stopped 10 paces from him. "You don't get to say my name." "I messed up. I know that. I need help. I lost everything." "You sold everything," Clara corrected. "We were never yours to sell." He glanced around the hollow. The Apache warriors were watching, silent, impassive, arrows ready. "I'm sorry," Ed muttered. "Sorry doesn't feed a child in the desert," Clara said. "Sorry doesn't undo blood." He dropped to his knees. "Just a drink, something. I'm dying." She stared at him for a long time, long enough for silence to stretch between them like a noose. Finally, she turned to Taza. "What do you do with a coyote who keeps returning to the fire?" He didn't answer. Clara threw a canteen on the dirt beside Ed. "There, that's all you get." Ed crawled forward, snatched it up, drank so fast it spilled down his front. When he looked up, Clara was already walking away. He didn't follow. By sundown, he was gone, vanished into the canyon, swallowed by the same desert that had raised and broken them. No one went after him. 2 days later, the elder council summoned Clara and Susie to the center of the hollow. It was a ceremonial gathering, drums, painted faces, songs that rose and fell like river tides. Naley stepped forward first, holding a carved stone. "You came to us as ghosts," she said. "Now you stand as fire." She placed a stone in Clara's palm. It was warm, smooth by years, marked with a symbol, hawk wings, open. "Your name is Iace. Little Hawk. You protect. You strike. You rise." Clara's chest tightened. Another stone, smaller, was handed to Susie. "For you, Ketchena, spirit dancer. You bring life. You see truth." Susie looked at Clara, eyes wide, lip trembling. Neither of them had words, but they didn't need them. Taz approached last, bow in hand. It wasn't a weapon. It was new, carved for her, the grip wrapped in leather, feathers tied near the tip. His gift. "You can stay," he said, "or you can go. Trade, caravans leave next moon." Clara looked toward the canyon rim. The world beyond it stretched wide, unknown, still dangerous. Then she looked back, at the people who had bled beside her, at the girl she'd saved, at the fire she now carried. "I'm staying," she said. Taza nodded. "Then you are not visitor. You are clan." That night they danced. The fire roared high. Drums pounded. Clara moved with the rhythm. Hand in hand with Susie, laughter echoing across the canyon walls. Somewhere between the smoke and the stars, the past burned to ash, and from it, something stronger rose. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. There's always another trail ahead, and another fire to light it.